Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to the third one in our series on the moon with the planets, and particularly at the moment we're looking at the outer planets Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. Today's video is all about Uranus conjunct with the moon. What does it mean? What will it bring you if you have this signature in your chart? And if you don't know if you have this signature in your chart, I encourage you to pop over to astro.com. And there you can enter in your details into the fields, and you'll come up with a chart that looks something like this. This is my age-old chart that I've written all over and scribbled all over, but this is what the chart will look like. And down the side, or sometimes it shows up at the bottom, you'll see a list of glyphs. Here is the moon's glyph, if you're looking closely there, and we're looking for the Uranus glyph. And if those two sit together somewhere in the chart, if the two are very tightly together, that will indicate that you have a Uranus moon conjunction. Now what I'm going to talk about here can also apply if you have a Uranus moon square or a Uranus moon opposition as well, so they both apply. But we're initially looking at things from the perspective of the conjunction. When these two energies combine, what do they bring you in your life? So we're going to explore all those things. Firstly, I need to just share with you what the moon represents in a person's life, and then what Uranus represents. The moon is our intuition. It's our connection with our, obviously our intuition, but our higher self, our ability to sort of get a sense of, you know, what's going on around us. So it can be really tuned in psychically if the moon is strong. If the moon is weak, then our intuition is off. Simple as that. When we are looking at the moon, we are actually looking at our emotional life, what we need to feel emotionally fulfilled and happy throughout our life journey. How we will express our emotions is seen by the moon, as well as what we need, as I said, to feel fulfilled and to feel joy, what we need at an emotional level in our life. The moon is also representative of the mother, the nurturing figure in our life, whether that's actually a grandmother or an auntie, or maybe even a masculine person who was nurturing and supportive and caring for you as a child. That is seen by the moon's placement. The way we mother is also seen by or nurture others is seen by the moon's placement and what's going on with the moon in the chart. And also the moon represents the home, the heritage, the roots, the lineage, the family that we come from as well. It's also quite a karmic planet, and it represents karma that we have experienced in past lives that we are now learning lessons from and trying to integrate into this current incarnation that we are in. So it's a hefty planet, carries a lot of weight and a lot of issues. It rules a lot of things. I've only just skimmed the top, covered a few of them, but it's a beautiful planet, or luminary, the moon. The other planet that we're looking at here to combine with is Uranus, and Uranus, one of my favorite planets, love it. Uranus is fascinating. It's the higher octave of Mercury. Uranus is an intellectual planet. It's the sign or the planet, when it's strong in the chart, of the genius, of a high level intuition. So combine that with the moon and its intuition, and bang, you've got a really potent combo. But it's like I said, the level of the genius. It's highly creative. I think Einstein kind of energy, really. It is the planet. It rules electricity. It rules high places, high spaces. It rules things that have to do with rebelliousness. Anything that's a bit rebellious, a bit sticking it to the man, a bit roller coastery, a bit excitable, a bit like electricity, on again, off again, on again, off again. It can be changeable. It's very much, not that it can't make up its mind, it's just sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. So a very changeable energy. It rules liberation and freedom and independence. This is what Uranus wants, wants authenticity, it wants truth. So this is going to be quite a mix in the cauldron of our moon and planet video. Let's take a look at what it can mean to have Uranus conjunct the moon. And I actually have this in my chart, very tight conjunction, and I love it. When it, you know, can't imagine what it'd be like not to have this. So let's dig in. Well, the first thing we note when we've got Uranus and the moon conjunct is we need independence. our life is defined by our individuality. It's a very individual planet, Uranus, and our need for independence. So we don't like, when you're Uranus moon, don't like to be told what to do, thank you very much. And if you tell me what to do, stuff you, I'm going to go do the opposite. You can't define me, you can't box me in, you can't tell me how to live my life. So it's a very rebellious and very independent type of energy. I'll do it my way, you know, that's Uranus through and through. It might mean they make mistakes and things don't go well. I'll vouch for that. But they'll do it their way. They're very Frank Sinatra. Do it my way. So highly independent energy. They can't be restricted in relationships. I mean, one of the problems, and I like to share everything in my life, highly Uranian moon quality, that one. I'll get to that in a minute. But one of the problems that I had in my marriage was that my husband was the opposite. He had moon with Saturn, opposite of moon with Uranus. I'm someone who I can't stay still in the one spot. I need change. I need, you know, things to be happening. And my ex-husband had moon with Saturn. He was so stuck. He wouldn't move. He hated to move. He wasn't leaving the town where he'd lived in the last 20 years. No, we're staying here, even though there's no opportunities and no advancement for the careers that he desired. Wasn't going to move, and that was really frustrating to someone like me with moon Uranus. So we cannot be restricted in relationships. We cannot be restricted and blocked in our place of living, in our home life. We will desire to break free if that's the case. So check it out. What have you got? What's your partner got? Is it a dangerous combo like I had with mine? It is a restless energy, Uranus, and that's okay. It's just how we're wired. In place of living, like I said, in where we live, I don't like it, but I find it difficult to put roots down for an extended period of time. For me personally, part of it's because I never seem to have the home that I desire, so I'm looking for the home that's actually what my heart really wants, and this one will do for now, and then I'll be looking, okay, now look somewhere else, and so on. So that's just part of my Neptune influence. I think they're actually that not being able to reach the ideal that I actually really want. But there's this restlessness when you've got Uranus conjunct the moon. You're restless about where you live, you know. Okay, this place isn't fulfilling me, people have hurt me here, people have offended me, I want to move, I want to start again, I want a fresh start, I want a new chance, let's go. Or we seem to be always changing our place of living, and that frustrates me. There is an antidote to that, and I'll talk about that at the end of this video. What's really interesting is that Uranus rules electricity, and I've noticed in my life, my whole life long, since I was a child, I've always had the bedroom in the house with that backs onto the power board, you know, the outside power board that measures how much electricity you use. That has always been backing onto my bedroom. In fact, usually my bed head, you probably can see it in the background there, has been on the wall that has this power board. So I find that really, really interesting. Uranus is our electricity, moon is our home, and if you're a highly Uranian person, Uranus moon person, you will tend to be in environments where there's a lot of electricity around. You know, your home environment will have a lot of electricity, you know, pertinent to you and your life, like I've just explained with the power board being on my bedroom wall. There's an aura with these people of constant change and excitability. They're exciting people to be around. They are interesting, they're fun, they're quirky, they're creative, they're buzzing, and it's really quite a fun, interesting, intriguing energy to be with someone who has a strong Uranus moon in the chart. They tend to live in a way that can be quite shocking to other people, and particularly it will be different to the family, the heritage, the roots, and the lineage. That's what the moon rules, and Uranus will make it very different, very opposite to the roots that these people come from. And anyone knows my story recently is that because I practice astrology, also ruled by Uranus, I have been told that I'm not welcome in our family home, because the way I live is just so different to the Christian expectations of my family. This is a very strong Uranus moon conjunction story. In fact, it occurred while I was having my Uranus opposition midlife transit. Uranus opposite Uranus was also Uranus opposite my moon in my chart, and this was the result. This disconnect, this cutting off, this not being able to connect with my family, my heritage, my roots, my lineage, because my way of life was too shocking for them, not for me, but for them to cope with and to be able to embrace. They just simply don't like astrology. So that's a difficulty. Absolutely, it's a difficulty, but this is part of what we carry when we have Uranus moon. I'm not saying that you're going to go through what I went through with my family over astrology, but there might be some sort of, like I said, some sort of disconnect from your heritage, your roots, your lineage. You might live in a way that's quite shocking or different to what your family expects of you, or to what you were raised to think or believe even. Okay, so there can be this disconnect and a breaking with the past that occurs at some point in our life when we have Uranus moon. Obviously, that's part of the story I just told you as well, but it can happen anytime, and you might decide to cut off certain experiences, certain friends, certain communities, certain groups that you need to get rid of. So that have been in your life maybe since young, they need to go for your own mental health, for your own well-being. It's not necessarily negative. Don't ever think that saying enough's enough is a bad thing to do, especially if you've got Uranus moon. You need to protect yourself, and this is because Uranus moon people, they're very, very sensitive, highly intuitive, highly psychic even as well, and their way of dealing with that is to say enough, can't handle that anymore, switch off. They function very like a physical incarnation of electricity. Sometimes they're on, yes, you're my best friend, it's a very friendly energy, yep, we're friends, I love you, this is great, and suddenly, boom, it's off. I'm sorry, but it's all over Red Rover because of some circumstance. They're not irrational, they're very logical, they're very sensible. It's a mental energy, Uranus. It's a highly switched on mental energy, so they're not going to make illogical decisions usually, but they will cut something out of their life if their sensitivity has been crossed, if their sensitivity has been wounded. Okay, like I said, a disconnect and a breaking from the past that will occur at some point in life. They can, and sorry, just reading my notes, they can be very emotionally detached when they feel unhappy at an emotional level. So they switch off, they detach from things when they're unhappy emotionally, and this is when they withdraw, and this is when they cut people off. So if they're feeling criticized or offended in some way by some sort of action of other people, they will tend to sort of say, well, that's enough, let's move, let's leave, I can't handle this anymore. I recall living in a place that I love and would dearly love to return to at some point, and there were struggles with my son being accepted in the community, and there were also struggles with me finding, as a single mother in a very small community, people did, strangely enough, I can't understand why, but they don't want to rent to single mothers. They'd rather have a house sitting empty than rent to single mothers. Crazy, go figure. But these sorts of things were occurring. My son was having struggles of his own, and then I couldn't find a place to rent, and I'm just like, all right, well, enough's enough, we're leaving, we're going to another town, we're going to live somewhere else. And that's exactly what we did. Life changed completely, new schools for the kids, new, total lot of upheaval, but it's like, okay, I feel like I'm not being accepted here and not being part of the community, so we're gone, done, cut and run, so to speak. Single motherhood is an interesting one to talk about as well. It doesn't mean if you've got Uranus conjunct moon that you are going to be a single mother. Just know that. But it can be that it does happen. Okay, so that might sound very contradictory, but the moon represents our mothering and our motherhood, and Uranus is independence, as I said in the beginning, doing things your own way. And that's what single mothers do. They are independent mothers, you know. So it could mean, you know, that your husband's away or your partner's away, driving trucks from one end of the country to another all the time, and you're actually doing mothering on your own. Even though you're partnered, you're doing mothering on your own. Or it could mean that you become a single mother like me, or that your mothering is going to be in some way Uranian. So let's take a look at that mothering energy. Don't freak out. Please don't freak out if you've looked at your chart and you've got Uranus conjunct Moon. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to be a single mother. Doesn't always manifest that way. But you will have what it takes to be a single mother should that circumstance arise in your life. You will have the rebelliousness that you need to do this on your own, to stick it to the man. I'm going to show you. My kids are going to turn out great. You watch. It's this sort of fiery kind of energy, this independent energy, this rebellious energy that will get you through doing that sort of a finding yourself in that sort of circumstance. Okay, so with mothering, it can manifest, if it doesn't manifest as the single mothering thing, it can manifest as you being, and you carry this very rebellious in relationship with your mother. So you can sort of be like, listen, Mum, this is not, you know, you're not using your common sense here or whatever, you know, kind of like you're a teenager before your time. As a child, there's this sort of, not pain in the arseness, but more of a, you know, a rebelliousness, and there's a strong sense of justice with Uranus as well, and fairness and equality. So if there's something amiss with that, then a child is going to, you know, say, you know, get it together, Mum, this is not right, I'm not happy with this, and there's a rebellious kind of energy of relationship between mother and child that can happen. And certainly I was a very compliant child. I did have this rebellious streak, often came out with teachers, whoops, but with regard to my mother, this sort of independent, rebellious attitude hasn't emerged until much later in my life. In fact, until I went through that Uranus opposition Moon period, where it's not that I'm nasty to my mother, but I cannot tolerate the lack of intellect in the things that she believes. So that's a whole other topic. But yeah, there's this rebelliousness towards the things that my mother represents now. It's not an active rebellion, but it's an energy that is there. Being very honest here, a Uranian quality, I might add. Mothering can also be done in a very unconventional way when you have Uranus and the Moon together. So you might mother your own children when you've got this in a way that's quite unconventional, left of center, very freedom giving, freedom loving. Yes, kids, no worries, come back home when it's dinner time kind of thing, the way we did back in the 70s and the 80s. So there's this real unconventional approach. You might actually take a path of sending your kids to an alternative type of school, or homeschooling them even can be done with this energy as well. Something really unconventional about the way you're going to mother your children. Uranian Moon mothers, they will also tend to give a lot of freedom to their children, because Uranus Moon people, they love freedom, they love independence, and they will give that to their children. It'll be a hallmark of their parenting style. But they'll also encourage their children to think intellectually, to think creatively, to explore options, to not be stuck in tradition and bogged down in the mire of dogma and that sort of thing. They will want their children to have and encourage their children to have an intellectual freedom about their life as well. It's also a signature Uranus Moon for people who choose not to have children, also because children, let's face it, they can limit the amount of freedom that you have in your life, and freedom is such an important commodity to Uranus Moon people that they may actually elect not to have children in their life, to say, oh, no, I think I value my freedom too much, and I know it will be taken away from me if I've got to devote myself to children. So that's another signature that's there. It's a signature, Uranus Moon, that tells us that the parent, the nurturing parent, will be very innovative, very progressive and forward thinking with their parenting style. They'll sort of be ahead of the game. They'll get not parenting trends, but they'll sort of get the way to do it before other people do. You know, they'll get what's healthy for their kids, they'll get what their children need before their children are actually ready for that. So, you know, for example, I can tell my son, he's recently turned 14, and you're not allowed to have a part-time job in Australia until you're 15, which is utterly ridiculous. I'd like to put my Uranian rebelliousness into action over that one. But my son, I have been observing him, my older son, and I can see how ready he is. He's been ready for like a year and a half to have some kind of work, to feel valued in society, to contribute, to feel like he is making a difference. And you know, I'm seeing that already, well before the time comes for him to be able to do that. So as parents, we pick up on those things. We're intuitive about our parenting. We're also progressive, and we know what our children need before they're even actually in that space. It's actually very helpful in that regard with parenting, even if it can indicate some rebellious relationships a little later in life, particularly with female children. Got that one to look forward to with my own daughter. So back to other issues that aside from mothering and parenting. The nature of Uranus Moon people is very authentic and very honest. As you can tell, I'm not backward in sharing what's going on in my life, and I've always been that way. Maybe I overshare a bit too much. Got to be careful of that one. But this authenticity, this realness, this maybe even vulnerability about life actually makes them very appealing as friends, Uranus Moon people. They tend to attract others who like their authenticity, their realness, their frankness even. It's helpful to have Uranus Moon in a sign that's got a bit of tact, otherwise you can just be frank and not have it in appropriate context, so keep that in mind. But generally their emotional honesty and authenticity is valued and appreciated by others. And their friends actually are going to feel more like family to them. Having friendships is going to be more supportive to them than actually their own family does. So I can vouch for that. You know, friendships, people who've got your back, who are there for you, who, you know, bring the casserole around when the shit's hitting the fan and life's not working. They're the ones who, you know, are there with the help and the assistance. Friends can be more like family, and you will be more like family to your friends as well. It's a highly intellectual signature. People who often function in their head, maybe get too caught up in their head. Hello, that's me. But it is a highly intellectual sign, and you're going to feel friendships and connections mostly with others who are also highly intellectual and who can discuss intellectual topics and even scientific. It's a very scientific planet, Uranus, so discussing scientific topics like quantum physics and astrophysics and things like that. They're going to be like, yeah, let's do it, bring it on. I know I'd love to talk about that sort of stuff with other people. But another quality that we see in Uranus Moon people is that they like to shake things up when things get too dull. When things are mundane and boring, they will try and shift things. Now that can be locationally, like I've described with a couple of illustrations here, but it can just be in their daily life. Like, for example, working in a job that, like a production line type of job for a Uranus Moon person, oh my God, that's not going to last. They can't be, even though they're probably connected to robots as modern technology, Uranus probably rules robots, but you cannot function as a robot in a production line capacity. You will like things to be a bit diverse and changeable in life. You will want a unique lifestyle. You will want to have a unique home. Moon is home. And so you'll want your home to be unique in some way. And you'll want unique relationships, not run-of-the-mill, not ordinary, not dull. There's a restlessness with careers that happens here as well. And that's can't be avoided. There might be a struggle with career, and certainly I will vouch for that. I've had so many different jobs over many years in many areas. I'm sure people look at my resume and go, what the? She's done everything. What's going on? This can't be real. But it's not that it's flash or anything like that, it's just diverse, because that's the nature of Uranus. It can't sit still for too long, and I'll get bored, I need to change, and I'm not going to be the person, and neither are you if you have Uranus moon, who gets a gold watch at the end of a 50-year stint working for the same company. That won't happen to you, so you can kiss the gold watch goodbye. There's also with Uranus moon a really strong perceptiveness. You will get flashes of insight. Now, for me, this happens when I'm talking with a friend and I get goosebumps or chills. I'm like, oh my God, what were you saying? That is just, that's so on the money. That is the wisdom. That's the insight. That's the shit, That's Uranus telling you. He rules our body's nervous system. He rules our electrical impulses in our body, which are our goosebumps. So when that happens and you're a Uranus strong person, particularly Uranus moon, you know that you're getting a flash of insight, a flash of intuition with that. But they can come in other ways too. You will be highly perceptive, highly tuned in. You'll just get it, You'll just be able to, it's almost like you channel divine knowledge. Neptune channels divine spirituality and creativity. Uranus channels divine knowledge. So this is really cool, actually. Yeah, people who are Uranian moon people can be very excitable. I think I might have already mentioned this, and they can be very changeable as well. So it can be hard, actually, for in relationship for the partners of Uranian moon people, because they are quite changeable. It's not that they're moody, because they're light. They're kind of above sort of wallowing in the sulky kind of stuff. We don't do that crap. We're too light and buoyant for that, Uranian moon people. Generally speaking, unless there's another signature in the chart that's bringing that on, but we are not the sulky, moody kind, but we do change, we do change quite a lot, and that can be hard, especially like I gave the example of my marriage where my partner was quite a stuck energy, a Saturnian sort of, we're not changing energy. So that can be difficult for partners to work with naturally. Not only that, but the tendency for Uranian people to just shut down, to switch off, to detach when they're in a situation where their sensitivity has been compromised, like they've been hurt or they've been wounded, or they're feeling, maybe threatened even in a relationship, then that can be really hard for a partner to deal with. So sometimes instead of thrashing out a problem and having a good old rant and argue, highly Uranian people will kind of just shut down and go silent and quiet and walk away. Not always. I certainly am not that sort of a person, but that can sometimes manifest like that, where they just detach and switch off. Turn the electricity off, bang, over. I'll switch it back on when the situation calms down a bit. So that's just something, if you're in a relationship with a Uranian moon person, to keep aware of as well. And the last thing is that they can have fairly roller coaster-like emotions when you're Uranian moon. Again, it's not moodiness, it's, like I mentioned, it's changeability. Sometimes that can be adaptability. But look, I'll give you an example from my life. I find that, if I wake up in the morning, I've had a really good dream and I'm just buzzing with joy. Yeah, I've had a fabulous dream. And I, jump in the shower, singing a song, everything's great, get dressed, get on with life. And I decide I'll go down the street to the coffee shop and get a coffee before I begin my day. And I get there and I'm chatting to the barista, and they're really going through a tough time, and being a compassionate person, I sort of listen and I take that on board, and I come home and I'm feeling heavier. So it's not that I'm down and depressed and moody, it's just that I'm so receptive that my emotional day can be like this in one single day. It's up and down like a roller coaster, and very receptive and respondent to the circumstances and the experiences and the interactions that I have. Like electricity is respondent to flicking the switch. All it takes is a flick and it's off, and a flick and it's on. Uranus moon people's emotions work the same way. Yep, we go to a movie and it's a real tearjerker. Flick, the switch is on. Oh my God, I feel so sad. That was so emotional. That was really... And then you go and have a coffee with your friend who you saw the movie with, and then in 10 minutes time you're laughing your head off, and you just like, it's the funniest experience of your life. It's like that. Changeable, quick energy, not stuck in sulky moodiness, okay? So that's the very distinctive difference. I don't like being told that I'm moody because I'm not. So what are some remedies for the challenging things that Uranus carries in the chart? Well, this constant needing to change place of living, that is a pain in the ass. And so how do we remedy that? What's a remedy for that? Well, actually living up high can be a remedy, because you, instead of, Uranus is change, but it's also things that are very high up. And so instead of channeling the energy into, oh, always changing where I live all the time, you live in a place that's up high, and it mitigates that need to change all the time. So live in a penthouse apartment up the top of the building, live on a mountaintop. I live on a ridge in the town in Australia where I live, and I've got this beautiful view out to a cathedral, and it's really lovely. Even though I am not enamored with my house, because I still would like to change location, it's being up high has given it a more settled feeling than I might have felt somewhere that's more claustrophobic. And I've lived, and certainly growing up, I lived in the plains, the river flats, and you could see for miles. So again, that Uranus moon enters in, I never felt hemmed in, I never felt claustrophobic, I never felt restricted. Very important in your place of living when you're a Uranian person. And that's why living here, I feel I can see out and I don't feel hemmed in and blocked and restricted. And that's why living on a mountaintop is really good, or a hilltop, or a penthouse is really good for Uranian people, because they need to feel free and that there is space in their life. The house prior to the one I'm in right now was a rental, and I couldn't see the moonrise, I couldn't see the sunset, I couldn't see anything. Like I couldn't see more than sort of 10 meters out into the bush and the houses that surrounded me, and it was, oh, it was like, oh, I can't handle this, you know. Plus it was in a gully as well, so definitely not helpful for a Uranian person. So naturally enough, I changed my place of living within a year. So if you are a Uranian moon person and you're always changing where you live, maybe look at living up high, where you, or in a, you know, river flats where you can see for a long way and things feel spacious, and like there's no being hemmed in, there's no restrictions, there's no blockages, you know, you feel expansive, which is very Uranian. Even spending time in the mountains and on mountaintops when you're feeling down can be really helpful. Okay, you live in the CBD in Melbourne, no mountaintops around there, where do you go? Well, go up the Eureka Sky Deck, you know, and go have dinner in a revolving restaurant up high, and, you know, be up above things, get a view somehow or other in wherever you are, and that will do a lot to alleviate if you are feeling frustrated or depressed or down and struggling with your emotions. Get some perspective, get up high in some way, get up in the air. Uranus is rules Aquarius, which is an air sign, so that is another remedy that you can employ to be up high. Being with intellectual people can also be quite therapeutic if you're struggling, feeling a bit out of sorts. Maybe, let's say you had an issue with mother or family or whatever, you know, you go and connect with your intellectual friends, or you join a book club, or you go and watch some of my YouTube videos. They're about astrology, and Uranus rules. Then, you know, by doing these sorts of things, you can sort of alleviate some heaviness that might be present from a difficult interaction, or a different, you know, a difficult relationship that's going through some problems. So connecting with others in some sort of intellectually stimulating way will be very helpful as well as a remedy. Now, because Uranus is a very mental energy, doing any type of mental activity can be therapeutic, like journaling, writing about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. meeting up with a friend for coffee, because it's a very social energy, Uranus, and just, you know, purging your soul, sharing about the problems, letting it all out of there. That is actually quite cathartic for Uranus energy. It's connected to friendships, and so by being with friends, that's helpful too. And allowing yourself time to disconnect from the world and switch that energy off. Very, very helpful. A lot of people will tell you when you've got a strong Neptune or Pisces influence or water energy influence that you need time, downtime by yourself and so on. But a lot of people don't realize that Uranian energy and actually Aquarian energy is like that too. Yes, it's a social air sign and a social planet, rules friends, but there is still the need to detach and disconnect for restoration and balance. So I'd encourage you to, if you know you're feeling out of sorts at all emotionally with the moon, allow yourself time to disconnect from life a little bit. You know, take time out, go and sit on a mountaintop and meditate. Do what you need to switch off for a while and just get yourself back together in the right headspace. So that can actually literally mean, you know, going to a resort that has no Wi-Fi, or, you know, like a health retreat that has no electrical connectivity, and actually fully switching off. Your Uranus will probably not like that, but it's going to allow you to realign again, and then you can come back to all your gadgets and your equipment and your inventions, and find that you're much more tuned in when you switch on again. So that's what we're looking at generally with the nature of Uranus moon. I forgot to mention that it is an energy that when you've got these together, you will have a natural capacity for the occult, for astrology. It's also highly karmic signature as well, and it indicates when these two are together that you've probably had a past life in which you were involved in the occult, or involved in astrology, or involved in any type of rebelliousness or revolutions, things like that in history. The moon is a very karmic planet that tells us a lot about what we've done in our previous incarnations. So you can actually now tap into these energies again and use them in this life, this capacity for astrology, or capacity for occult, you know, hidden knowledge, and even to be involved in, you know, anarchist groups or rebellious political movements and things like that. So that is the nature of Uranus moon. It has been such a joy to walk through a little piece of my chart with you all. Thanks for joining me, and God bless.